All right, Makumalo, are you ready?
Yes, are we on a countdown?
Yeah, let's take it from 10.
Okay, do we have people online or a delay?
I'm only going to see that when I start the webinar. So
Oh, I see. Okay, fair enough. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the Proudly South African webinar, where we will be discussing the wine sector, where we're going to be zooming into, the challenges in the sector in regards to job losses, in regards to unemployment, in regards to COVID-19, in regards to, the reality that even prior to COVID-19, the industry or the sector may have been in trouble already. My name is Happy Ngidi. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Proudly South African, but today I'm also a Program Director for this session. Welcome to all our speakers online this morning and those that are still going to join us. Welcome to all the delegates that are online, our members, our stakeholders, and team Proudly South African. Just a few house rules. Just a reminder that on the platform for the delegates, there is a chat box and there is a Q&A section on it. You're very welcome to, put your questions in the questions and answer section, to make comments, to engage as much as you possibly can. We will look out for your comments, questions, and anything that, that'll catch our attention. Just also to let you know that we are streaming live on, obviously on this platform, Zoom, but we're also on Facebook, and our PR team at Proudly South African will also keep all the other social media platforms going, putting out the conversation that we're having this morning. So without further ado, I would like to welcome all our speakers this morning. First online, there is a bit of a change on the program, by the way. First in line as a speaker is going to be Marina Callow, who is Communications Manager from Wines of South Africa, and she will then be followed by the CEO of Proudly South African, Ms. Eustace Mashimbie. And thereafter, we will hear from Denzel Swartz from Simansach Wine Estate. He's the brand ambassador there, with a wealth of knowledge, obviously, in the industry. And we will also hear from Nondumiso Pikashe, who is an entrepreneur in the sector, and one of our own as a member of Proudly South African. Those are our speakers, and the flow will be in that order. And so we all know that the wine sector is worth millions of rands. There is no secret. And we all know that we as South Africa produce amazing wine that we export to the world. So wine plays different roles for most of us. For many people who are on the call, are somewhat involved in the sector. Some of you who are online may want to be part of the sector, may want to be part of that movement. Some of us, consume wine as a tranquilizer, if you like. So there's many reasons why we relate to wine, or how we relate to it as a people. But most importantly, it also takes care of a massive value chain, which then translates into many, many jobs in South Africa. And as a result, it then contributes immensely to our economy. It is a big deal, in the economy, in terms of how it contributes rather to the country's economy. But like I said in my opening remarks, that COVID-19 has caused chaos in this sector, just like many other sectors that we, many other sectors out there that have really taken a knock, due to COVID-19. But like I did say, even prior to that, there's many sectors that were already in trouble before COVID-19. We all know that we had been downgraded as a country a couple of times before COVID-19 dealt with us. So, and all of this has caused astronomical job losses that do not only affect employees in the wine sector, but it also affects hundreds and if not thousands of households, that are affected somewhat by the challenges. So the question is, just how much damage has this mess caused? And as we celebrate International Wine Day today, and hence this webinar, but for us, it's even more than just celebrating International Wine Day. It's about really dealing with the issues behind the scenes from a value chain perspective, from a job creation perspective, job losses, unemployment, and all of the above. But I will leave all of that, to the experts that we have online today to take us through some of their thought processes, some of their insights, the realities in the sector, and whether or not entrepreneurship is going to be our fortune, or our turnaround point, or not, whether or not localization is the key to a good place that we are hoping to see ourselves as a country, as an economy, and as a people. And with that said, it now gives me great pleasure to welcome onto the platform our first speaker, who will, share with us her wealth of knowledge. Marina Carlo is Communications Manager of Wines of South Africa. May I please request that you switch your camera on, join us on the platform, and we look forward to hearing from you this morning. Welcome, Marina.
Good morning, everyone, and a very big thank you to Happy and the team at Proudly South Africa. Thank you so much for having me here today to chat a little bit more about the South African wine industry, what we've been doing, what we plan on doing going forward, and the situation as things stand right now. To all the viewers, thank you so much for joining us on this International Wine Day, and it's great that it falls on a Friday, because then hopefully no one has to go to work tomorrow and you can enjoy a beautiful glass of South African wine wherever you may find yourself. Before I start with my presentation, I just want to briefly talk to COVID and the impact thereof on our industry. Of course, many of you, or most of you, will know that our industry was hit hard with various bans throughout the past year and a bit. And we are hoping that our government will take this into consideration when with this third wave that is now kicking off, and really heed our calls for assistance in not shutting us down entirely. We have shared extensive thought processes around how the pandemic can be circumvented in a safe and viable manner that will ensure that our hospitals are hopefully not overrun, and the health of South Africans are front of mind. The impact has, however, been huge. We have estimated financial losses of roughly 8.5 billion Rand on our industry, and job losses in excess of 22,000. And as Happy rightly said, this isn't just job losses. Those job losses affect families. And these job losses, while we anticipate they were just in the wine industry, stretch way beyond that. They stretch into manufacturing, bottling, the packaging companies. And as we all know, hospitality was also hugely affected by the various bans and curfews that were in place. If you take it through to the hospitality sector, event sector, restaurants, even all the way down to the people who drive Ubers, who suddenly didn't have that many clientele because people weren't going to restaurants and enjoying a bottle of wine with their meal. So it really stretches way beyond only our industry. And we really do hope that we can move forward and focus on growth once this pandemic is eventually over. I will share my presentation with you. I can't seem to see.
Marina, do you see an arrow on, if you look on your right-hand side at the top, there should be an arrow that you can click on, and it'll ask you share your screen. Can you see that?
Hold on.
Okay.
It has given me the arrow, but it's not giving me my presentation to select, unfortunately, which is quite strange.
All right. Back office, technical team, please assist. Did you give Marina permission to share?
I found it.
Okay.
Go. It looks like permission was granted. That's super. Thank you.
Perfect.
Is my screen sharing?
Yes, it is. We can see your presentation.
Okay. So I'd like to start just by positioning the South African wine industry. We are quite a large industry with various facets. I'd like to start by our partners, Vinpro. They really look after our primary growers. They have 2,600 members that is made up of wine grape producers, producers and estate producers, sellers, and various other association members. They also have a brilliant office that focus on wine tourism that I specifically want to highlight at this particular point in time. Because wine tourism is incredibly important for our industry, we recognize that every visitor to our beautiful winelands really is someone who returns to wherever they're from, whether it is from up north in South Africa, Gauteng, KZN, Mpumalanga, anywhere, to all our international markets. Everyone returns an ambassador when they've experienced our beautiful winelands, when they've visited our amazing farms with stunning food and experienced the hospitality and, most importantly, the wonderful wines that we have to offer here. And so a very big role that wine tourism plays for us. And that sector has also been very, very hard hit by COVID-19. So I would like to take this opportunity to invite each and every one of you, whether you've been here before or not, to please come visit and take in the majesty that is the Cape Winelands. It really is something very special. And I can honestly say, having visited many other regions, wine producing regions in the world, the hospitality and the beauty that we have here is second to none. The National Agricultural Marketing Council promotes market access for South African agriculture. They also form a very important role in the funding. The SALBA is the Liquor Brand Owners Association. They look after the very, very big members, manufacturers, and trademark owners. And then there are 4 business units which all have very integral roles to play in our industry. SARVIS, who looks after the statistics and the wine of origin scheme, which really sets us apart from so many that really, if you see on your bottle of wine, the wine is from Franschhoek, you can know for sure that that wine and 100% of the grapes therein was farmed in Franschhoek, for example. WineTech are a phenomenal organization that look after research and development, technology transfer, and they are coming up with some really groundbreaking stuff when it comes to finding drought-resistant varietals. We do know that water, for example, is becoming a scarcity, and we need to focus on farming a more clever when it comes to using water within all elements of agriculture, not just the wine industry. I'll chat a little bit more about Wines of South Africa, the organization that I represent, in the next slide. And then, of course, transformation forms a major part of what we are doing here in the industry. We recognize that we need to change the face to really represent South Africa, and proudly in doing that. So the South African Wine Industry Transformation Unit supports and coordinates funding for transformation. Wines of South Africa is, however, the South African Wine Industry's Export Marketing Council, and therefore we are responsible for promoting South African wine on a generic basis internationally. We only focus on certain key markets, and those really are Canada, the USA, the UK, Germany, Netherlands, and Sweden, which really is a very important market for us, that European and UK market, because 50% of all our exports go there. So that's where most of our wine can be found. Then Asia as a market, really with a focus on mainland China, Hong Kong and Japan, and then Africa, of course. Our neighbors, our fellow Africans are a very important market for us. Each of these markets have dedicated market managers who live and work in market, and it is their role to really roll out activities within their markets in order to help promote South African wine therein. I just want to give you an idea of the industry and what we do and the size of it as well. So in 2020, we crushed 1.34 million tons of grapes. That's quite a lot. And it produced over 1,000 million liters of wine. My apologies. Sorry. So wine sales, that's quite a significant number, 22.4 billion wine sales here locally in South Africa. And it is safe to say that 19 million glasses of South African wine is enjoyed worldwide every day. I certainly know that I at least have 1 or 2 of those a day for myself, and I hope the same counts for you as well. Roughly 50% of all our wine gets exported internationally. And last year we exported about just shy of 320 million liters of wine to over 110 countries around the world, with an export value of over 9 billion rand. So it is extensive what we do. However, I think there's so much more that can be done. Our industry really is geared towards growth. We're geared towards showcasing the best of the best that we have. And I think one of the most important messages I would like to impart on you today is that our wines that we produce in South Africa are some of the best in the world. We can stand very proudly alongside any of our international counterparts and know that what we produce is a quality product. Just to further paint the picture, we have 2,778 primary producers and growers and 553 sellers. Unfortunately, the vineyard planting area, as you'll see in that graph, has gone down. It's gone down from about 105 hectares a few years back to about 92,000. But what is heartening to see is that the production, therefore the yield, is still very stable. So it shows us that most of those vineyards that have been uprooted have been vines that haven't really been showing decent yields and not been producing as optimally as they should be. From a fiscal contribution, the industry contributes roughly 55 billion rands to the annual fiscus, which is quite a significant number. And to touch on employees, we're just shy of 270,000 employees in our industry, of which 80,000 are farm and cellar workers. Saying this, we are still little fish in a very, very big pond. We only really produce about 4% of all the wine that is produced in the world. So that means there's room for growth, and I'm sure that hopefully in future we can see a larger market segment of that. From a marketing perspective, we really do hang our hook on two varietals here in South Africa. The white varietal that we are very proud of is a Chenin Blanc. We have the widest vineyard plantings of Chenin Blanc in the world. Over 17,000 hectares, in fact. The next most is in France, and they are just over 9,000 hectares. And what we love about Chenin Blanc is that it sits beautifully in that little gap between those who love Sauvignon Blanc and those who love Chardonnay, because it is such a versatile grape. You can really have it as a wooded wine, as an unwooded wine, in different styles, from fresh and fruity to really rich and robust. You could even make a beautiful cup classique from it. And the best thing is that it pairs stunningly with food as well. So it is our white varietal that we are super, super proud of. However, it is Pinotage that is the varietal that everyone refers to when they think of South African wine. This grape was in fact created in a laboratory by Professor Abram Perold in 1925 here at Stellenbosch University, when he married the Pinot Noir grape with the Cinsault grape. Back in the days, they referred to Cinsault as Hermitage, and that's where the name came from. The Pinot from Pinot Noir and Hermitage, Pinotage, but we know today that it is in fact Cinsault. And this grape has really come a long way in recent years to really position as South Africa's proudly red varietal. We are also seeing a lot of different iterations of wine that is being made from Pinotage, from really light and classic and elegant to more rich and robust and that full-rounded wine. And we also have wonderful Cape blends that are made from Pinotage, depending on the percentage of Pinotage that is added in alongside other varieties to make a beautiful red blend. So just to showcase where we sit in terms of per capita consumption, South Africans aren't really drinking a lot of wine compared to our European counterparts, only 7.4 litres per person over the age of 15 years, hopefully over the age of 18 years, which is our minimum alcohol consumption age. We are a beer drinking nation, and beer is indeed part of our culture. But what is exciting is to see how wine is changing in the greater landscape of South Africa. So I have a positive feeling that that per capita consumption number is definitely going to change. I think over the years, wine has been demystified. It has been often seen as something that is very snobbish, and people think that they need to understand wine, when that really isn't the case at all. Wine is about enjoyment. Wine is about food. Wine is about company. And I can speak for myself when I say I really do not have a favorite. People often say to me, Morena, what is your favorite wine? I don't have a favorite wine. My favorite wine is the one that's in my glass that I'm enjoying today. And it changes whether I'm on my own, just having a de-stressing glass of wine after work, whether I'm sharing it with family or friends or celebrating a special occasion. It really does vary. And my recommendation to anyone who enjoys wine is to just try everything from different regions. You're going to find what you really love. And don't let anyone tell you there's a right or a wrong when it comes to wine. Wine is like art, in my opinion. What one person might find really appealing, the other person might not be so fond about, but if you just dig a little bit deeper, I'm sure you'll find something that's perfect for you. From an export perspective, I just wanted to quickly showcase where we were at. Of course, before '94, exports were minimal, but once everything opened upon the democratization of South Africa, so too did markets for our wine. So exports rose quite significantly in that time. Just to very briefly touch on the spike you see for 2013, that directly correlates to a drought situation that was experienced in Europe, but it evens out with our average export volume sitting at roughly 420 million litres. Sadly, you'll see a dip in the last few years to 320 odd million litres. That really relates quite closely to the drought that we experienced here in the Western Cape, as well as COVID last year. But we are feeling very positive that these export figures are likely to go back closer to that 400 million litre mark from this year going forward. So hoping for a very good recovery in that perspective. Then I would like to finish off just by highlighting that our wines get entered into a number of competitions. We have some local competitions like Veritas, the Michelangelo competition, the Old Mutual Trophy Wine Show, but also a lot of international competitions that our producers enter their wines in, and also ratings from very well-known masters of wine such as Tim Atkin, publications such as Wine Spectator or Decanter. And it is safe to say that in all of the competitions, our wines really do stand out, bringing home trophies and top medals. We can certainly be proud of the wine industry that we have here in South Africa. And I urge each and every one of you on today, International Wine Day, but way beyond that, to please enjoy and promote South African wine wherever you may go. We started along with my amazing colleagues in the communications team at Vinpro last year when we were in a very tough situation with the alcohol bans. We started a campaign called #SaveSAWine. And I don't think any of us really anticipated the length and breadth that campaign would go for our industry. We were one of the only wine producing countries that were shut down from local sales bans, while others were also impacted by the local hospitality sector and the closure of on-trade. We couldn't sell wine even locally to our local South Africans. And at one point for about 5 weeks, we also couldn't export wine, which really, really hurt our producers quite a lot. But in starting the #SaveSAWine campaign, it really brought awareness to our plight and our situation here in South Africa. And we could really tap into markets where people didn't necessarily know about South African wine. And it was really amazing to see on the Facebook page and on social media how people from all around the world were saying that they were buying South African wine, that they'd never had South African wine before, but were supporting our campaign. People who highlighted that they don't even drink wine, but they bought South African wine to gift to their wine-loving friends. And that was really amazing to feel that support from all corners of the world. And hopefully that will have a lasting effect in people who have been converted to the beautiful quality of South African wine around the globe. With that, I thank you so much for the opportunity, and please, yes, once again, enjoy South African wine wherever you may be, and tell everyone about our wonderful produce. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marina. That I must say that I feel like you schooled a lot of us. You know, in terms of, you know, what happens in your world, so to speak. I'm very keen on knowing more about the campaign that you say you ran. And I would imagine that, you know, you were able to measure some sort of success. And would you say that it made a difference where it matters the most? And that is, you know, in the pockets of the winemakers and businesses in the wine industry. Do you feel that people were a lot more aware, but they bought quite a lot? So did it make a difference in the revenue that was generated?
I definitely think it did. I think people, especially internationally, recognized that we were in a very, very tricky situation. And what that also led to, from a local perspective, is our wineries really recognize the importance of social media. They recognize the importance of having social media platforms where they could sell online. And it was incredible to see how many of them ran special offers also for locals, which helped them through a very difficult time. It meant that they can do wine sales while there was a ban in place that ensured that they had some kind of turnover at that point in time, with delivery taking place once the ban was eventually lifted. But I think what the campaign would have done, certainly internationally as well, which after the initial 5-week export ban, was to really just highlight that, you know, our wines are out there. Please don't forget about us. We are here. We're doing what we can to stay alive, and actually without your support, the picture will be a lot worse. And I think the picture would have been a lot worse had that not been the case. So it really did have far-fetching repercussions, overall positive. And as I said, I think with a lot of people who highlighted they'd never had South African wine before, but heard about the issues we were facing and decided to try South African wines, I'm quite sure that anyone who tries a quality South African product will be a return customer, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you know, the crisis for me is what you said earlier on when you said the anticipated loss of revenue during, you know, hard lockdown and all of that at the beginning of COVID is anticipated at 8.5 billion rands. That's I'm hoping that the industry, it's a crisis, but I'm hoping that the industry has slowly recovered.
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, you know, if people don't have wine to drink, then it's not there. It's not something that can be clawed back. So we are sitting with very full cellars after a very, very successful harvest 2021. The harvest finished just over a month or so ago, and it was a very positive harvest. It started significantly later, or at least about 2 weeks later for most of our producers, but it was a very long ripening season, which sees beautiful grapes and really good quality. So we're very excited by that. However, we are sitting on quite a lot of wine stock at the moment, but we are positive that we will be able to sell that in a responsible manner. And I think that is the most important part. You know, people are looking for specials and deals everywhere, but one has to remember that these producers need to stay alive. They need to keep their organizations going in order to pay the salaries, and not just a basic wage, a living wage for their workers. This is very, very important. We often talk about social sustainability, environmental sustainability, And while those two elements are very, very important for parts of our industry, the financial sustainability element is just as important, because without that, we cannot grow, we cannot move forward, and we cannot ensure that the environmental and social sustainability elements are looked after.
Yeah, and before I let you go, Marina, is that 22.4 billion sales in South Africa on wine. We drink a lot of wine. My only regret is that during lockdown, first hard lockdown, I didn't stock up enough on wine. Little did we all know that the lockdown, we all anticipated it lasting for about a month or two. We didn't think it was a big deal. 3 months into it, we all needed to cope with some bottle or something. That's my only regret, that I didn't stock up on enough wine. But thank you so much, Marina. Thank you so much. Really just so insightful, and giving us a sneak peek into the world of wine and how it impacts on our economy, on the jobs, on households, on the value chain, and all of that. Thank you so much. I'm hoping that we are able to keep you online for a bit longer, so just to interact with you again shortly. Thank you, Marina.
Thank you.
All right, so we've all heard from Marina, and I must say that it's really just so insightful. And now I will hand over to Eustace Mashimbe, CEO of Proudly South African, just to give you a brief background about how this whole discussion around the wine sector impacts on the work that we do and what we are hoping to achieve by having these type of discussions and the work that we do in the industry. Eustace, welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Happy. Good morning, colleagues. Lovely presentation from Marina. It's a tough act to follow, but I think because we're talking wines, it makes sense that you set the scene and set the tone for us for the conversation that we are having today as we celebrate International Wines Day. As introduced, my name is Eustace, and I'm from Proudly South African. And what we are is a buy local campaign, largely informed by the fact that the country battles a huge unemployment challenge, and coupled with that is the growing inequality in the country, as well as rising poverty levels within our society. And so a campaign like this seeks to ensure that those who make purchasing decisions choose locally made products, they choose locally made wine, such that we can absorb as many people as possible into jobs, help those who have jobs to stay in those jobs. And Marina touched on the impact that the pandemic has had on the industry itself, the households that are supported by those who are employed in the industry. And I'll touch on that without necessarily rehashing everything that Marina spoke about. But if you look at the unemployment rate in this country, it's quite high and stands at 32.5%. And that was at the end of 2020, where we had 7.2 million of our people unemployed, 3.9 million also unemployed but discouraged and have stopped looking for work opportunities. And if you add that number of those who are discouraged and have stopped looking for work to the number of those who are actively looking for employment but can't get employment opportunities, you're looking at about 11 million people who are unemployed in a country with about 59 million people by way of population. So very high levels of unemployment, which requires things to be done differently. And so if you look at this industry in terms of its contribution to employment largely, and I think I won't necessarily touch on all of it because Marina touched on a lot of these things, but that number for me is staggering to say in 2019, you had about 269,096 people employed, directly or indirectly in the industry. And that value chain that you touched on, Marina, is quite important in that it gives a sense of how the wine industry touches on many other industries. And I have a slide later on, which sort of demonstrates the multiply effect of this industry as you highlighted it. And so I think we are very aligned this morning. I mean, there's more than 2,778 farmers who cultivate around 92,000 hectares of land under vines in the country. So the contribution to the GDP the contribution to the usage of land for productive purposes is quite big from this industry. And interestingly, they say the most widely planted wine variety is the Cape Sav. So keep drinking the Cape Sav, guys. You're helping create jobs. You're helping feed a lot of households. And one of the interesting facts that we picked up as well is the fact that of the 55 billion rands contributed by this industry, about 31 billion rands remains in the Western Cape. And I think that's why you are inviting all of us, Marina, to come to that part of the world, because we need to come and support directly the industry. The growth in contribution to the GDP has been at least 10% per annum since 2003. That's a huge contribution. There's a huge growth in the contribution made by this industry to the GDP. And so we have to support this industry. It's not by default that we've chosen to celebrate this industry because of the impact it has on the economy and on households and on the economic well-being of the citizens of this country. And if you consider that of the country's total annual harvest of 1,042 million liters in 2020, 86% was devoted to the making of wine. So wine contributes a lot to all that land that is harvested. So keep drinking the wine, because only 4% of that was harvested was utilized as wine for brandy. And we, interestingly, and you had that slide that shows how well we are doing in terms of our exports and where we are in terms of consumption of wine as a country. And we interestingly rank as 8th in overall volume production of wine and produce 4% of the world's wine as a 2020. So quite interesting stats that we saw there. And so that's why we advocate for the buying of wine by South Africans. We saw that we're a big exporter of wine based on the numbers that you have showed us, but we need South Africans to continue drinking wine. And this phenomenon of wanting consumers to consume what is made in that specific country is not unique to South Africa. So what we do as Proudly South African by advocating for the buying of local wines, what you are calling for through your Save SA Wines campaign is not unique to South Africa. It's a global phenomenon. On my slide, I've spoken about Australia, the US, the UK, and the Philippines, where they all have buy local campaigns aimed at ensuring that those who live within the borders of those countries consume that which is made in those countries. We have, as a case study, the US, which even has legislation in place to that effect, where the US back in 1933 enacted an act, the Buy American Act, followed it up in 1982 with the Buy America Act, and in 2017 issued an improvement to that act, the Buy America Improvement Act. All of it aimed at ensuring that there's legislation that supports the drive by government in the US to ensure that Americans and those who live within the borders of that country buy local. President Biden, when coming into office, even signed executive orders to that effect, where he strengthened the Buy American provisions to encourage the federal government to purchase goods and services from US companies. And he did that within the first week of coming into office. So it was not a Trump thing, it's a US economic policy thing. And if you go onto the net and you look out for President Biden's briefing to the Senate and the Congress, where he addressed both houses, he spent quite a lot of time when dealing with economic policies of that country on localization and on local procurement and on buying local, in order to ensure that Americans understand the economic importance of them choosing American-made products whenever buying. So it's not unique to us, because buying local helps you retain and create jobs. It helps with developing skills for those who are unemployed. Once they get absorbed into these different industries, if they get absorbed into any part of the value chain within that wine industry, they develop skills that they did not have, that they would not have sitting at home. It helps grow the economy of the country. It empowers new entrants to also come in, and new brands to get an opportunity to also prosper, because then as the drive for consumers to look out for more locally produced wines increases, new entrants also have a market of some sort that they can piggyback off. It contributes to improvement of the living standards of those who are benefiting across the whole value chain, whether they are benefiting by way of being employees, directly or indirectly, or employers and companies that are selling those wines and across the whole value chain, whether it's in logistics, in packaging, and across that whole value chain. Contributes to the increase of the GDP and helps us develop the infrastructure. And if you think of all those, the land, all of those hectares that I mentioned of land that is harvested in this country, it's land that would have gone to waste, but there's infrastructure that is developed around all of those facilities to ensure that production keeps flowing and that for logistical purposes, the wine can eventually get to the end users. And so what is our mandate as Proudly South African? We are a buy local campaign, and we seek to influence procurement in the private and the public sector in order to ensure that we get those who make purchasing decisions to buy local and help us create jobs and retain existing jobs. We focus on 4 areas, which is the public sector and its government across all levels of government. We educate those in the private sector about the importance of buying local. There is no legislation in the private sector as opposed to in government and in the public sector, where there's legislation that forces those who buy certain products that are designated to buy locally made products. But in the private sector, you can't do that. So you have to appeal to their sense of patriotism, economic patriotism especially, for them to start choosing locally made products. We have to educate consumers, the general public, and you'll see that the focus of my slides today is really around how do we get the private sector to play its role, but how do we get the private sector, and the consumers rather, to also consume higher levels of wine and locally made products because of the impact it has on the economy. We also promote the accessibility of locally made products and services. As we go out and we say to consumers and we say to the private sector, buy local, they need to know where to find these products. And so we have different ways in which we do this. We have portals that live on our website. I won't necessarily spend time on those portals, but we do have portals where if you go into the proudlysa.co.za and you go into where we have COVID-19 portals, where we have furniture portals, there's different portals that enable consumers and buyers to find locally made products. So thinking about this industry, what is the role then of Proudly South African within the retail value chain? Because those who produce wines produce them for consumption by end users or by consumers. And at most times, what is required is a retail process, if not at all times, that will help take the product from the manufacturer straight to the consumer. And so the retailer is quite an important cog in that whole wheel. But the retailers we found, especially in this industry, I mean, the conversations we've had with a lot of the retailers, especially for those with FMCG and related products, is that they're reluctant to put products on their shelves if consumers are not going to demand it. And that's where Proudly South African comes in. Our role is to ensure that as a wine producer, you know that when you go engage a wine buyer for a retailer, they will be willing to take your product and put it on the shelves. But if your wine won't move, and it will stay there and consumers won't pick it up and take it home and pay for it, they won't keep your product on the shelves. And so the role of Proudly South African is to ensure that we work with people like Wines of South Africa and the different brand owners who affiliate with Proudly South African to get them to get consumers to buy from them. Our role is to drive consumers to choose locally made products, especially including South African wines. As consumers choose those products, retailers will be forced to keep buying and ordering and putting those bottles on the shelves so that we continue to retain the jobs we have and to create much needed jobs. Because if we don't buy the locally made wine and retailers continue to stock up on imported wine, we're exporting the jobs. We are supporting jobs in those countries. We only produce 4% of wine that is consumed all over the world. So those who produce the 96% also want to retain the jobs in their countries, but they can't retain it at the expense of the jobs in South Africa. And so the role of Proudly South African is to stimulate demand for locally made wines and locally produced wines, such that retailers continue to put them on the shelves and consumers can easily access them. So who can become a member of Proudly South African and participate in this whole process of getting South African made products to be exposed to consumers? Any company that ticks the following boxes can affiliate with Proudly South African. And the first one is that the product must be locally made. The local content is quite important in that, if you think of this industry, the whatever is harvested must be harvested in South Africa. The whole value chain, the compressing thereof, the conversion of those raw materials into the final product, including the packaging, and finally taking the product onto retail shelves must happen within the borders of South Africa, so that we can confidently say to consumers, buy this product because we're supporting jobs in South Africa. So in instances where raw materials required are not available in the country, we do support it, but only if we have absolute assurance that the conversion of those raw materials into the final wine product will happen within the borders of South Africa. But in this instance, it's possible to produce your wine from scratch all the way up until it's ready for consumption in South Africa. And so and that's who will then be accredited with Proudly South African. The next criteria that companies have to conform with is quality. And with quality, we're quite strong in that we feel very strongly, and those are the words I want to use, that we feel strongly about saying to South Africans, buy locally made products, but knowing that the product is of high quality nature and that it will satisfy the need for which it is consumed. So it's quite important that companies that affiliate with us demonstrate to us that they're going to produce high quality products and that we will be able to compete with the best that is out there internationally and otherwise. Companies that affiliate with us, especially in this industry, have to ensure that they treat their workers fairly, that they comply with the labor legislation of the country, and lastly, that in the course of producing the wines and producing the products that they ultimately want to sell to consumers, that they help us preserve the environment. So that is the 4 key criteria. And there's perception out there that it's expensive to be a member of Proudly South African, but it's not. Startups and companies that have turnover up to 5 million rands only have to pay 500 rands per annum. And those with turnover between 5 million and 10 million have to pay 1,000 rands. And the most that any company that wants to affiliate with us has to pay is 100,000 rands. And that's for companies with turnovers of 100 million rands and more. And so it's not expensive. It's per annum. And there are discounts that are applicable for those who want to take long-term membership. And so we encourage companies and wine producers that produce their wines that want to participate in this buy local campaign to take up membership. It's not expensive because the benefits are quite extensive, and the biggest ones stem from what we do in the consumer space, which I'm going to touch on as I head towards the end of my presentation. We help with taking your products to consumers, and one of the ways in which we do it is through online shopping platforms, and one of those that we prefer is our own, which is rsamade.co.za, where every single product sold on this platform is locally made. And so consumers can go on there and order wine and know that the wine that they're going to buy on that platform is wholly made in South Africa. And so it gives consumers an option of where to go with and not worry about buying a product that comes from outside of South Africa. But the biggest benefit for wine producers is that you know that you have a captured market, you have a targeted audience that will help you with retaining the jobs you have and creating much needed jobs as sales of the products that you have continue to be driven towards your product through this platform. We've also engaged retailers, and the example I've given there is where we went to ShopRite Checkers, and this is an example of our proposal to retailers. Various retailers have been engaged, and that's what we're calling on them to do, to say they must increase the levels of local content. They must increase the levels of local wines that are on their shelves, but have in-store promotions that tell consumers that there are local products that are available, and have them on the shelves and show consumers on the shelves to say, this is the product that you must buy because that product is locally made, and the economic impact thereof will then be for the benefit of all of us who are living in this country. And so those are some of the examples of what we do with retailers and what we hope to achieve with all of them over time. We know a lot of you battle with retailers and with getting shelf space. So we're trying to get them to commit to increasing local content levels and to doing in-store promotions and campaigns to help make sure that those products, locally made products, move off the shelf so that they keep replenishing them, and such that there's a bigger benefit to wine producers and they don't lose that shelf space to imported products. Before COVID, we used to have consumer education drives. We used to go into malls and do activations. We used to have activations at festivals, in universities, where we educate students on the importance of buying local whilst they're still there. We work with the unions and mobilize the labor forces on the ground. We roll out consumer advertising campaigns. We use sporting events to drive the message home. We roll out online competitions. And we are quite big on consumer expos, because all of that gives us an opportunity to have face-to-face interaction with consumers at a below the line level, where we can educate them properly on the economic impact of buying local. We roll out sector-specific consumer education campaigns. That is what we've done for the clothing, textile, footwear, and leather industry, where we work with the retailers to ask them, Zanzi, are you wearing local? What are you wearing? And is it made in South Africa? Just to make sure that South Africans understand that it's an industry that also needs support. So we can do the same for this industry. We have rolled out a campaign with the poultry industry where we said to South Africans, as you buy chicken for your home, for your business, make sure that that chicken product that you take home with you is the one that is made in South Africa, is the one that has the Proudly South African logo, because we know what the benefit is to the economy. We've also rolled out a campaign called One Meal, Many Thanks, and in fact, it talks to that value chain that you spoke about, Marina, where when people go out and they buy that one meal, the many things simply alludes to the fact that there are many other people who benefit from that purchasing decision. It's not just about that one restaurant, but that restaurant serves you wine that comes from wine producers, where there's a whole value chain involved. Whatever meal, whatever food product you buy, if you're buying chicken, there's the whole poultry industry that benefits. If you're buying a salad, there's a whole industry that benefits from growing all those vegetables and all the ingredients that are ultimately used to produce that salad. So one meal that you buy in a restaurant as you go out, like you said, during COVID, all of that benefit was taken away. And I like the fact that you even went to using Uber as an example, say that that Uber driver also suffered because people are not going out to have their favorite wine when they go to restaurants. And so as a result, they don't necessarily have to use an Uber anymore. So that one meal, many things about that. As you go out and you enjoy your meal, then you enjoy your wine with your meal, and you pay it properly. And there's familiar that helps you pay it properly in that restaurant. You then are contributing to many jobs that are retained in many industries that are all part of that value chain. And so we also at different times roll out different campaigns, including during the festive season. And we know that during the festive season, there's a lot of, there's higher levels of drinking that happens. And so we then call on South Africans to choose locally made products, to go on social media and show us the locally made products that they're consuming, that they're buying, that they're taking home with them. And we encourage South Africans through those competitions that we roll out during the festive season to buy local. There's increased spending that happens during that time. There's increased drinking, like I said. And so it's a good time, it's an opportune time to roll out those campaigns focused on consumers. We run out back to school campaigns in January, etc. But for Black Friday as well, wine producers that affiliate with us, and we have quite a few wine producers that affiliate with us, can participate in the Black Friday activations and consumer targeted campaigns, where we say to South Africans, as you look out for the specials during Black Friday, choose locally produced wine. And what we're calling for is the wine producers to also come up with specials during that time. So that if you say to consumers, look out for the specials are really out there, so that they don't only find specials that come from imported products. As I conclude, I want to talk about this campaign, the generic campaign that we rolled out from August last year, where we basically said to South Africans, the economy was already in trouble even before we went into the hard lockdown as a result of the pandemic. And the pandemic gave us an opportunity to pause and reflect and take it all in. But what it did is that it gave us an opportunity to do things differently as the economy reopened. And one of the things that we are calling for, and we started calling for at that time, is that as the economy opens up and people go back into employment and they start buying the products that they require, that they must choose locally made products. And that's why it's the campaign is named Game Time. Game time comes from utilizing an analogy of a sporting match. Football is the easiest example, or rugby, where in the first half, if you're not doing well, at halftime, you go back, you regroup, you come back with better tactics, such that in the second half, you can improve. And so it's the same approach that we're calling for, that post the hard lockdown. What we're looking for is South Africans to choose locally made products, to choose products that are made within the borders of South Africa, such that we can help turn the economy around. And so I want to play the ad as I conclude, and appeal to those of you who have not seen the campaign to really pay attention to the messages in the campaign, because we have in the past rolled this out on SABC, MultiChoice, and ETV. We rolled out between August and December on those platforms. and on online and digital platforms. But we get a sense that there's still more that needs to be done. It still needs to live out there, and we will bring it back together with other campaigns that we're cooking up to help support different industries, including this industry later in the year. So here's the ad.
The second half is about to begin. We need to change the scoreboard. It's time for all of us to pause and rethink the game plan in order to save the future. I call on all of us to be game changers, because greatness isn't reserved only for some people. By buying local, we're choosing to create jobs and sustain the ones we have. Time and time again, South Africans have taken destiny into their own hands, creating products that the rest of the world wanted to buy. See, the world remembers about us what we sometimes forget, but it's time for change. Let's all buy local. It's game time. Zanzi.
Local is lekker.
Your everyday decisions shape our future.
And that's the campaign. Your everyday decisions shape our future. Your everyday drinking decisions shape our future. If you choose to drink wine that comes from outside of South Africa, you're supporting jobs that are in those countries. But if you choose South African wine, you're supporting South African industries and the jobs that are created within the whole value chain. So that's my presentation. Thank you, Program Director. For those brand owners and wine producers that are out there that want to join Proudly South African, please go on to send us an email, info@proudlysa.co.za. A couple of days from now, you can easily go into proudlysa.co.za and fill in your details on the membership tab and join Proudly South African and become part of this buy local movement. The second half is in your hands, Mzansi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eustace. But before you get off the camera, I just want to say that as much as it may sound like a joke, that your everyday purchasing decisions when you buy wine shape our future, it's no joke, right? Because when you do buy that bottle of wine, you're keeping somebody in their job, you're keeping their family taken care of, because that person might just be a breadwinner. You are contributing to the value chain. So it's no joke. It sounds light, but it's important.
Yeah, your everyday drinking decisions shape
drinking decisions. Your everyday drinking decisions.
Yes.
But I also just want to touch on there's a lot that we can take out from your presentation, but I also just want to talk to the one slide where you were unpacking our engagements with retailers.
Yes.
Because I would imagine that there's people sitting in this forum and they want to get into the business, or they are in the business, but they're struggling to get to the mainstream market, where they're struggling to put their brands and products in retail stores. Just to highlight the fact that we largely play an advocacy role. We cannot force retailers to place products on their shelves. All we can do as a credible voice that seeks to ensure that entrepreneurship works is that we can, continuously urge retailers to do the right thing, continuously urge them to give an equal opportunity to many, businesses out there. But we can't force their hand. I mean, especially the private sector. The public sector is accountable. We go in because there's products that are designated that they have no choice but to purchase locally and make sure that the value chain strives. But when it comes to public sector, there's only so much we can do, and also only for member companies, because we can't fix everything. It's impossible. We cannot guarantee everybody who's not even affiliated with the brand that we can assist them. Am I correct?
No, that's very correct. In fact, what we are mostly responsible for within this whole advocacy value chain of those who advocate for the consumption of locally made products is to get consumers to choose locally made products. I think that's the most important element of the work we do. So outside of trying to get retailers to get South African products onto their shelves, what you ultimately want is consumers to demand it. then the retailer will not have a choice. I mean, the buyers are saying, I mean, we have brands, and I'm sorry for dropping the name of the brand without their permission, but La Ritmal as an example, one of the wine brands that is in our books, met with them again 3 weeks ago. The buyers that we had introduced them to are still telling them that they will not keep their products on the shelves if the consumers don't buy it. So the consumer is important in this whole value chain. Even if you win the buyer over, and you find that they accommodate your product on the shelves, if the consumers don't pick up that bottle of wine and take it home with, it defeats the purpose. And so that's why it's important, especially for new entrants, new brands. I mean, there's a company that joined us recently, Nanzu Wines, who have been on my case about getting them onto shelves, retail shelves. And I think it calls for us to roll out a campaign for this industry in the same way as we've done a campaign for poultry, where we said, here are the products that are locally made that are affiliated with us. So what you said is important, is for products that are affiliated with us that we can vouch for because they've gone through our vetting process. I think it needs a campaign like that where we say to consumers, this is what we must buy during Heritage Month and beyond and into the festive season, where we say South Africans are pointed to specific brands so that even when the buyer wants to resist, they know that, but it defeats the purpose for them because the consumer is going to look for it and they won't have it on their shelves. And that's where we play in that space.
Yes, okay. Yeah, thank you. I couldn't agree with you more. So we will roll out a campaign in support of this industry, but we also know that, to roll out a robust, a heavy, hectic campaign that's going to reach all consumers, all over South Africa needs major marketing budgets, which we don't have. We must put it out there immediately. There isn't, large amounts of money that are sitting there waiting for us to use. We, with the little that we have, we do roll out those campaigns. But then, having said that, even if we had to put one product or many products on shelves, if they do not sell, the retailer will kick them out because they're running a business. That's a reality, and there's nothing we can do. If they say, well, this product is not selling, we have to get rid of it. We can't jump in. We can't fight that battle. It's not our battle to fight because we do not have the power to enforce it. But we can do, we do what we can as and when the need arises. Okay, so thank you so much, Eustace.
Thank you.
I'm sure there will be comments and questions and all of that if you're still available to be online. If not, we'll take care of it. Thank you so much. Alrighty, with that said, I encourage all our, our attendees that are online to send us questions, comments, ask for clarity on any of the things that we're saying with the greatest of pleasure, and we will tackle those. Our next speaker is Denzel Swartz. Denzel is brand ambassador, Simosech Wine Estate, but also just involved in many aspects or elements of the wine industry outside of Simosech Wine Estate. Denzel, there you are. I see you on screen. Welcome and thank you for spending a bit of time with us this morning. Please go ahead. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Happy, and all the viewers online. I think from my perspective, I'm really linking quite well into the conversation at the moment because the conversation is essentially wine, the importance of wine in the industry and in South Africa, but also how do we get consumers to take that bottle of wine off the shelf. And as a brand ambassador for Simosech Wines and in the various other platforms that I'm in, I think it's essentially one of my roles to help consumers and to drive consumers to take the product off the shelf. And I want to start off by saying consumer awareness is very important. And unfortunately, when we look at South African wines and why the capacity of drinking South African wines or wine in South Africa is so low, is not just the fact that beer is an easy drinking style alcohol, but the history of wine and how wine is perceived plays a very critical role in the decision making of a new and incoming consumer. And quite often as a brand ambassador, when I go to a wine festival and I present at the wine festival, it's always the first instance is to try and educate the consumer around wine. Because very often when when you look at wine on the shelf, and the way they write descriptive about wine, it seems that you need to be a wine connoisseur to understand it. And so for us, the importance is that we need to break down those barriers. We need to break down those walls to ensure that wine is being looked at as a product which you can enjoy anytime, and you don't have to be particularly a connoisseur to enjoy it. So I'm looking to the left because I'm actually having a bottle just next to me. And so just to come back and how we need to do that process is to take wine to all corners and to really teach people that wine is a product that speaks to you personally. So I might like a Pinot Noir, somebody else might like a Chenin Blanc, and that's absolutely fine. And if you want to drink your bottle of Pinot Noirs with pap and boerewors with a nice sauce, you can do it. You don't need a beautiful decorated plate of food to enjoy a wine with. You don't need, or for instance, a lot of people have been asking me, can you pair hamburgers with wine? Yes, certainly. As Morena said, it's the wine, the best wine is the wine in your glass. And that's the wine in front of you. So if you take all those other snobbishness away, the important thing is this is a wine in front of you. What do you get from it? And enjoy the wine in that way. I am a big supporter of buying South African wines or buying anything proudly South African. And I think we need to start there. And in starting at carrying this message of proudly South African, we need to make people aware that when you do support South African products, you are essentially investing into your own country and into the pockets of the many people working in this industry. And so the fancy part of wanting to put out a bottle of wine to say that it's coming from France or it's coming from Chile or from Spain, nothing wrong with that. But if we say we are proud to South Africa and we're supporting our own country and we are patriotic about our country, it's also important that we need to be the ones advocating and supporting our country. And in the last 2 weeks, I had two restaurant bills that ended up on my desk from people saying, look at the spending power in South Africa. And one was 500,000, the other one was 100,000 on wines. And when I looked at the bill, I didn't see any South African products on the bill. And I was kind of surprised that we'd spend so much money in our country in a restaurant and we're not even having a South African wine or alcohol beverage as part of that list of our spend. And so we need to change the face of wine. And I think that's my message that I want to carry through today's presentation. We need to break down the walls of wine completely. Wine festivals that only is set up in areas where wine is prominently consumed needs to start moving to the small little corners where maybe beer is being consumed, but not dictating how people should be drinking wine, but rather introducing them and allowing them to enjoy wine the way they would normally do. If we break down that holes and change the face of wine in that way, we are going to see an uptake in consumers drinking wine. We're already seeing it in the wine industry. I quite seldom at work on a weekend, when I sit back and I look at who is the new market drinking wine, there's a big emerging market of all racial colors enjoying wine, and you can start seeing them coming to Stellenbosch to have a fun time. But then we need to make sure that we appeal to them. And that appeal will then create a demand which we then can take to the local small liquor store in the township and say, you need to stock this wine. And then they will, like you guys said, then they will only take it up because they know the wine is going to move. So we need to introduce that. And as a brand ambassador, I think it's my role to kind of break down the walls to consumers and tell them that here's a bottle of wine, pour yourself a little bit, and what is it that you understand from this wine? What is the flavor profiles that you are getting? And if they describe it in a very simplistic way, of course, it is absolutely fine if they do that. Maybe we need to start rewriting the wording on the back of bottles. Maybe we should be starting to say to consumers that this bottle of wine you can enjoy with amagunya. Maybe we should be saying to them that it doesn't matter what you do at home, you don't have to specifically pair the wine. Just pour yourself a good glass of wine and enjoy it. And only then we're going to really start changing. So it's the perception that we need to change, that South African wines are of high quality, and there's no dispute. Morena said it earlier, our wines are winning big prizes at international competitions, showcasing our talent that we have and the quality of wines that we produce in South Africa. Secondly, for me, it's also very important that we start building groups that can go out and take the Proudly South African story to their friends, to consumers. And through your advertising that I've just seen that you guys will be rolling out, there is a perfect platform for our consumers to start bringing more awareness to it and then taking that to the consumer. So as a brand ambassador myself, I want to pledge my support in continuously taking wine to the smallest of towns. And I'm sitting right now in Graaf Reinet in the Eastern Cape, bringing our wines to the locals. And on Saturday, on Sunday morning, I'll be leaving to Port Elizabeth. And what I'll be doing there is I'm taking wine to one of the smaller communities on the Sunday to do a food and wine pairing for the community of Uitenhage, to showcase to them the quality of wines, but also the importance of consuming wine and the fact that they can do it in the comfort of their homes. So with that said, I think I wanna leave the conversation here by saying that each one of us needs to be ambassadors for Proudly South Africa. And if we do that in our own communities, in our own little circles, then only we're gonna create a demand which we can then take to the retail stores to say that, listen, you need to stock Sisfikile because it's a great wine. She has introduced it to us in the small town and you need to stock a wine. And that demand will then help to put out the support for buying local. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denzel. Thank you so much. I want to throw you under the bus and say to you, we all witnessed that you are drinking on the job. We saw a bottle of wine right next to you. We all saw it. Yeah, there we go. It's even in a glass. Yeah. I envy you. A lot of us envy you right now. So, and I see that you are also part of the wine festival in Graaf Reinet today, in light of the International Wine Day. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, fantastic. But it's also refreshing to see that to this discussion you brought in a different element. Outside of what we've been focusing on this morning, which is the job element, the value chain, the the revenue and the households and all of that. You are bringing in a lifestyle element where you are educating us as the audience here today that you are more than welcome to enjoy your wine in any way that you feel comfortable, whether it's with magwenya or kota or curry and rice or pizza or whatever the case may be. And that, you mustn't allow anybody to dictate to you how to enjoy your wine. That's my take out of the lifestyle element that you threw in, correct?
Yeah, no, that's definitely it. I think if we do that and we break down those holes, it's only then that we're going to create a bigger wine consuming market that will eventually filter into pushing up the per capita drinking of wine, but also then filter into stores which we really want to get the wines into, and wine buyers to kind of take in the proudly South African wines.
Thank you so much for your time. I know you have to jump off quickly because you've got other work to take care of. Thank you for showing up and for sharing with us your knowledge in the industry and sector. And we will hopefully see you soon when we roll out the wine campaign that we anticipate rolling out sometime this year. Thanks a lot, Denzel.
Thank you very much, and I'll have a sip on your.
Cheers. Thank you so much. Well, there you have it, everybody. That was Denzel Swart, who is the ambassador for Simmonsach Wine Estate. And our next speaker now, our last speaker, but certainly not least, is one of our own who is a member of ours from Sesfikile Wines, Nondumiso Pikache, an entrepreneur, an entrepreneur who's about to share with us, her experience in terms of, the business of wine, the association she has with us, and so on and so on. Nondumiso, welcome, and the platform is yours. Thank you so much for your time. Nondumiso, are you there? I see Nondumiso is definitely online because I see her name on, there we go. You've just unmuted. Thank you, Nondumiso, welcome.
I'm trying to put on the video. It says you are not allowing me the video on.
Is it not allowing you? Please help technical. Please assist Nondumiso.
Needs to allow me to put the video on.
Okay, we could see you earlier on when we logged on, so I think it's just a small technicality. But with that said, please go ahead and do your intro.
Okay. Good morning, Happy, and the team, Proud South African, as well as the audience. Thank you.
All right, Nondumiso, please may I interrupt? We can see you now on screen. The only thing is that I would like you to tilt your camera a little bit because we can only see your nose and mouth. There we go. There we go, sorted, fantastic, thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Happy, and the rest of the Proudly South African team, and as well as the audience in general. Thank you for having me this morning. I am the owner and founder of Sesfikile Wines, dating back to 2006. How I got into the industry was I was inspired by the changes in our beautiful country, where women were encouraged, to explore opportunities in the country. So I was, naturally drawn to wine because I was born and raised in Cape Town, so from a township called Gugulethu. So Gugulethu is a stone throw away from the beautiful manicured vineyards of the Cape. So by looking at the wine industry value chain, I found that it was intimidating. You look at the land question, the seller, logistics and distribution up to the end where up to the retail space. So I realized that there was no way I could enter the wine space in that way because one is capital intensive and also it is expertise pertinent. And also the importance of being connected to those who are in the players was also critical. So because of our history, I knew no one at the time. So there was an organization that was actively recruiting Black people to participate in the wine space. The organization then was called BOSI. So they helped us to get into the space, understand the whole industry value chain. And then I realized then the only way to get into the space was to create the wine brand. And it was intentional for the brand to be called Sesfikile. For those who might not know, Sesfikile means we have arrived. So it's an indigenous brand, which tells a beautiful story of celebration, of triumph, of resuscitating the African Renaissance, of also saying on the global platform that the South African wine industry has arrived in earnest to compete meaningfully, as Marina has alluded, amongst countries like Chile, Argentina, who has been on the global space because we couldn't because of our ugly past. So Sesfikile, inspires entrepreneurship. It inspires innovation. And I also like, the soundtrack of your campaign, when it talks about the scoreboard. In the industry, we talk about the scorecard. So there is some kind of relationship there. So I am glad with the fact that you decided to celebrate, International National Wine Day, because there's a lot of the lack of information dissemination in that regard, especially amongst the majority of people in the country. We are at the consumption level, but not really on the information journey, where we really appreciate how wine comes about, the fact that a great berry can turn into a beautiful alcoholic beverage called wine, as Denzel has put it, which you can pair it with any food of your choice. So Sesfikile, as an intentional, named brand, is here on two levels: the social one and the economic one. I'm here to demystify, wine, because wine is viewed as an elite drink. People become, nervous around wine. They become nervous on how to hold the glass of wine, how to drink the wine, with what they should, pair the wine with. So I left teaching in earnest to pursue this dream of mine. And it has been a tumultuous journey, I must say. But I must say also it's my passion. I also acknowledge that there isn't a journey that does not have challenges. So the challenges I welcome and embrace, and they help, to empower me and my fellow brand owners who are also in the same struggle as I am. So where we also mentioned about COVID did not only bring, problems or struggles as far as Black brand owners are concerned. It actually exacerbates, the situation. It found us struggling already, As you say, you are trying to get us into retail space as proud South Africans, something that we appreciate, that cannot force retailers. But I think there's an element of consciousness that needs to be brought in as far as wine buyers are concerned, You will be told that you just at the brand level, you don't own the cellar, you don't own vineyards. So we can't, because we cannot. I mean, the answers to that are quite obvious. So I think there should be meaningful engagement where the element of consciousness is cultivated and reinforced. And I think also the conversation about wine should be multi-sectoral, Coming from teaching, I've never, and I was teaching life orientation. Life orientation is about, exposing one of the life orientation one of the duties of a life orientation teacher is to expose kids to different career paths out there. So in my 13-year teaching career, I've never once told kids about the career paths available in the wine industry because I did not know. So are my colleagues who are still teaching those kids. They did not know that, there are opportunities to become viticulturists. There are opportunities to become oenologists. There are opportunities to become graphic designer in the wine space. And the list to be sommeliers, the list goes on. The language, this kind of language does not exist in our communities because there is lack of exposure. There is lack of information dissemination. So I try to partner with the University of Stellenbosch to speak to schools in Guguletu and Nyanga and Delft, so that kids are aware, that not only conventional careers should be pursued, but also the ones that their forebears could not, pursue or participate in. They shouldn't be just comfortable, also content with just be consumers of a product, even if they're not going to pursue careers, but they should understand, they should appreciate how the product came into being. And wine being, one of our rich heritages in South Africa. I mean, we have wine production in South Africa is almost 5 centuries old, and yet little is known about it by our own people, So that's where I feel that the Department of Education maybe needs to tweak a bit in terms of the curriculum structure syllabus that is being delivered at schools, and also, where wine, where, adults or people are outside of school, we can do more in educating people about, wine appreciation. I tend to be less using the word drink. I lean more on the word appreciation because of how I see wine, that is not an alcoholic beverage to get drunk, but you appreciate it. And it is an only alcoholic beverage that you can pair with food and also have those health benefits, that contributes to the regulation of your blood pressure, easing your digestion and so on. But also, wine, I see wine also as a beautiful connector. It connects, people, it connects, nationalities, it connects communities. You can get beautiful conversation, through a bottle of wine. Like, for instance, when I would, get into markets, and people will say, okay, Sesfikile, oh, that's an interesting name. What does it mean? And then I'll start getting into conversation that Sesfikile is a Nguni name, which means we have arrived. So it's a multifaceted concept that means the arrival of women, as our former Miss Universe had said, getting into spaces, occupying spaces and cementing it. So I think that's also what I'm trying to do here. Spaces that are previously white and male dominated, it's about breaking down barriers. It's about collaboration. It's about also, helping government in creating South Africa to be a cohesive, society that it should be, to be colorful in all aspects and in all spheres. I feel that I was speaking to myself. I like an interactive session. Hey, but do you want to come in here maybe and ask me a question? I feel I've been rambling alone.
No problem. You're not rambling. We are listening to you. But I'm very happy to come in at this point and say that I like the point that you're making about maybe the Department of Education, considering incorporating some education element into the curriculum, especially entrepreneurship. Not necessarily wine or gin or soft drink or clothing and textile, but entrepreneurship. Because we also of the view that is so critical, that shapes a young mind at a very young age, in terms of shaping their craft and their true interest that's going to give them a livelihood. That's going to, you can imagine that if most of us as entrepreneurs, if you were exposed to entrepreneurship at school level,
absolutely,
you would be, you're good where you are now, but you can imagine the difference the massive difference that would have done. I just feel that our education system at some point failed us in a big way. But there's still it can still be. In fact, we are engaging the Department of Education already as Proudly South African to incorporate the buy local message into the curriculum somehow. Because you can imagine our children, if they taught the narrative of buying local, supporting local brands, encouraging their parents to support local brands. By the time they are our age, half the job will be done in terms of supporting our economy and doing right by our local brands. And we all know that as parents, if you've got little people running around in your house, when you go to shopping centers with them, half of the things that you buy have got nothing to do with you. It's about what they need, what they think is cool, what they think they can live without, they can't live without. They influence our purchasing decisions as adults, right?
Yeah. Also happy. It is a little things that we think are little, but they have got major impact. When I travel, internationally, I look, in how, patriotic, young people are. And, little things like having a national flag in your house,
Yes.
It's so important, but it looks small, When I was a teacher, I used to really feel strongly about it. That instead of having, for instance, starting a day with a prayer, why can't we not start it with the national anthem, for instance? Why don't we have the national flag, hanging, at school, at the school gate, and each and every classroom, that speaks to the the consciousness of us as South Africans, and also inspires patriotism. Before I also forget, going back to marina structure of the wine industry, we have been introduced to a new body called SAWI-DEF. So it's South African Wine Industry Development Empowerment Foundation. So what they do is the mission actually touches on the mission of South African organization, where you look at drivers, where you want to eliminate issues of inequality, unemployment, and poverty, of which the faces of these problems are always black. SAWI-DEF has organized themselves to drive transformation within the industry. So I just wanted to mention that, because as a player in the industry, I feel that is moving very slowly. The last time I checked, it was only 1.9% of black representation across the wine industry value chain. And we are just right at the end of the value chain. There is no representation where land is concerned at seller level, at distribution, and in logistics. I think that is one thing that I think needs to be seriously looked into, because it affects also the sustainability of our businesses, Yeah. So I think if I see that you work with DTI, which is, I think is a good thing, or you are under DTI. I think if you can have, the players also in a room where we discuss also what our challenges are and the possible solutions, because we think we do also have, possible solutions to our challenges.
Thank you so much, Nondumi. So your participation today, your contribution is extremely appreciated. Thank you that you heeded our call as a member, and we said to you, here's an opportunity, come and talk to us and to the audience, and you showed up. We really, really appreciate it. I think there might be a question for you. I see something has just popped up on the chat box. It says, how can we build an inclusive wine industry when it continues to exclude Black people? And I think this is what you've just alluded to when you said, perhaps going forward, we can include the likes of the DTIC, who are the policymakers, from a trade perspective, where they can, be part of this discussion and hear some of your the challenges that you face as an entrepreneur, so they hear it directly from you, and get to share with the audience, how they can step in and assist. And unfortunately, even the question that is on the chat box right now, I think that as Proudly South African, we're not properly qualified to zoom into it, because we are merely, like we said, an advocacy campaign. We try to step in where we can, and not necessarily, have the answers for some of the critical questions. The question that says it excludes, some of the entrepreneurs. And I think a learning for us today, which I admit to as proudly on behalf of Proudly South African, is that when we arrange some, and in some instances when we do these webinars, we do throw in a relevant ministry that will talk to that topic, and perhaps today, the likes of the DTI should have, the specific desk from the DTI should have been part of this discussion, just to unpack some of the issues. But with that said, there's always the next time, because we also learn from what our audiences and our members are specifically looking for, and we'll do right by you. So with that said, thank you so much, my sister. We Nondumiso, we appreciate your time, and we appreciate the fact that you're still part of the movement, and hopefully we'll see you when we roll out the wine campaign to educate consumers about the world of wine and how important it is that your product is supported at retail spaces or at wherever it is, on an online platform, wherever it may be. Thank you. So with that said, I think we are at the end of the session. I'm going to just look for any more comments or questions. There's one question for you, in particular, Nondumiso, that says, roughly how many jobs does producing Sespigile create? So how many people do you employ in your operation?
Taking into account COVID numbers, it's just myself and one person that helps me with marketing. So things are dire.
Okay, you've had to downgrade given the circumstances. Okay, but under normal circumstances, so before COVID and when it was normal?
5 to 8 people.
That's a lot of people. So this means that COVID has resulted in about 5 people losing their jobs, meaning that the households that they used to take care of have also been affected. Yeah, which is a pity. It really is a problem. It's a great pity, that people are affected that way. All right, thank you so much, Nondumiso. We appreciate your contribution. And at this point, I just want to thank everybody that who joined us today, everybody who's online, who showed up for this discussion. Thank you. Go to our website to see some of the work that we do. If you have any more questions regarding the work that Proudly South African does, or if you want to join, like Nondumiso did, you're most welcome to send us an email on info@proudlysouthafrican.co.za. And with that said, I would like to thank all our speakers today. And first in line is Eustace Mashimbie, who is the CEO at Proudly South African. That's a career limiting exercise. I've just forgotten my boss's name, but anyway. So Eustace Mashimbi, who is CEO at Proudly South African. Thank you so much for your contribution, Eustace. Marina Kalo, Communications Manager, Wines of South Africa. Thank you so much for your contribution to this discussion today. Denzel Swartz, I think Denzel has had to step off the call, but in his absentia, we thank him very much for showing up and talking to us today. And last but not least, Nondumiso, thank you for your contribution as well. To everybody that joined us this morning, thank you so much for showing up. To Team Proudly South African, thank you for putting this together. Have a lovely day further, everybody, and we'll see you soon at our next webinar. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone.